But I'm not sure if you do. It's all mine.
Yeah, what you said.
All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is the Policy, Procedure, and Protocol Committee. And so we have one item on the agenda today. I think that we will go from last place to first place by the next quarter. So this is I think is important for a lot of people, and we've got one case that we kind of started with, and there may be some subcommittees or something like that other people that want to get involved. But right now, we have, and I think I'm going to use this kind of as an example of where we're at. And so the point of the new business is utilizing hospital-based landing pads for scene flights. Now, I want to take a just quick poll. How many people have been out, at motocross, on a car wreck scene, something by the tracks, and said, I just don't know where we may be able to land this helicopter, or we're only so far away, 10 minutes or something, and if you land, I'll have the flight crews talk about that, but the understanding is if you land at a hospital, then you do not need the fire department and ground crew. Is that correct? Because they're lighted, they're protected, and everything else. So I've thought that it's been a good idea, and we do that pretty frequently, particularly in certain areas where we just may not have as many other landing zones as we'd like. And so I was talking about a situation that came up where we had a fresh stroke, and a pretty massive one, and it basically was about 8 miles or less from the hospital, and they had walked in, Mom walked into the kitchen to, I don't know, bring out the potato chips or something, and the family out watching the game noticed after 10 or 15 minutes that she hadn't come back, and came in and she was on the floor, and she definitely had signs of stroke. And because this is a very rural hospital in the state, you can about imagine where, but anyway, you all have them in different places. So our crew is really excited that we were going to, airlift this person out, because we thought this was going to be one that they might be able to turn around. And so in that particular mountainous area, we elected to just go to the local ER landing zone, which is fine. And the aircrafts were coming in. Well, there was some weather in between and all this and that, but so we ended up waiting outside for, we thought 5 minutes, then turned about to 10, and so we said, well, we got to take the patient in. We know we can't wait this long. And so we're kind of coming in, the local critical access hospital saying, no, don't do that, because then we're going to have this whole procedure. It's going to take us an hour to get them back out. So anyway, we raised this question about, it was the right thing to do. We could have had them land up the hollow, and we'd still be waiting for the aircraft, right? If they were out 20 minutes or something. So we brought this to, and we had a discussion, and then Jamie came up with some draft language, which I think is good. It at least is a starting point. So what happens is, under the policies and procedures for air medical, this bottom one was added to it. And so the draft here says use of helicopter-based landing zones. A, EMS shall be permitted to utilize hospital-based landing zones in cases where it's more practical and safer to do versus a makeshift landing or landing zone created on or near the site of the incident, right? And at the hospital, you do not need the fire departments to come out. Okay, does that make sense? So we would still have to call the fire department to to create the landing zone, and there's gonna be X amount of delay in that. The hospital shall be contacted and given by the facility prior to utilizing the landing zone. This will assure no conflicts will arrive and the hospital operations of other incoming helicopters. So they won't let us stack helicopters on top of each other. That makes perfect sense. I hadn't really thought about that, but as soon as we can, we'd have to know that and see if that site was available or what if they were coming out for somebody else. All right? C, EMS shall not be required to enter the emergency room when simply utilizing the landing pad for EMS field operations. This is determined by the following. And this is critical because we're going to have to know this for liability. But as it's written currently, upon arrival, the helicopter's on the pad waiting EMS. That's the ideal situation, right? We drive there and there's no time wasted. Upon arrival, the helicopter is in view, preparing to land. Okay, pretty darn close. Third, communication with the helicopter crew verify arrival time of less than 1 minute. So it's a pretty tight window, right? When people are going across mountains and stuff about where we can do that. And then D, should EMS at the hospital with intention to simply utilize the landing pad and the hospital be delayed. All right? So for whatever reason, the helicopter isn't meeting that is there within that minute, the EMS shall immediately divert the patient to the emergency room for stabilization and transfer at a later time. Now, at least this would be something if it goes through the rest of the rules and stuff and it's passed. It's a little tricky. I like it. I think at least you put in the things. I kept going, well, yeah, but what if this, what if that? So at least we have a starting point. So for those that want to be interested in the committee or in this particular case, first question is how many in there by show of hands utilize a hospital LZ for somebody versus just setting up out, in the field or wherever. So you guys do it, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. People too, I think it's kind of been interesting because there hasn't been really a policy on it. And there's been a lot of undercurrent that says if you land on the hospital property, a lot of the hospitals may feel that they have to see the patient, right? There's a lot, yes?
The reason why, and I was, a couple of hospitals that I looked at did this, they mandated that the ER doc evaluate them because if there's an emergency medical condition and they're within 250 yards of the hospital, there's an obligation of the hospital to stabilize the patient prior to transfer. So, and you're also landing on hospital property, so you got you're gonna, if you do that, you're gonna have to work with hospitals to see if they're willing to waiver their liability.
Right.
And you might also want to talk to OFLAC about that because they're the ones that investigate opposite. And I can't even think what FLAC stands for, but it's federal something licensure of hospitals. They do the internal investigations, and they may have something to say about that. But they're pretty tight on that 250 yard.
Paul, I would urge the committee to make certain that in the language that they place into the policy that the local squad needs to have a memorandum of understanding with that hospital beforehand. To Dr. Mills' point, there was a case out of Kentucky where a community landing zone was directly across the street from a hospital, but was within that 250 yards. And the question was why a multi-system trauma patient wasn't taken across the street and placed in there. Well, it ended up being thrown out because when they did the deep dive in depositions, they found out the patient got to level 1 trauma center in plenty of time, and got definitive care quicker than had years gone inside. But there are hospitals that want us to do that routinely, and they just say, just don't bring them in here. If the helicopter's there at the same time the ambulance is, there's other places that say absolutely not. If they're on our property, you better bring them in the door. So if it's drilled down to the local level and the hospital has an MOU with the squad, it's gonna allow a lot more protection. And frankly, for the protection for the squad, it puts the onus back on that hospital.
Right.
And that's where we need that liability is on the hospital.
The other, go ahead.
I know on the flip side of that there are facilities that have helipads that fly patients out. That's the reason that they have them, that they would wholeheartedly welcome the
Mhm.
squad using that helipad because those hospitals don't have
Right.
a neurologist, they don't have trauma level, they don't have anything
Right.
available to take care of a critical patient. And they would not want those patients in their facility at all. They would welcome them to take those services and fly patients out from there. So that's another reason to work with your hospitals.
And see, we have this other thing where the memorandum of understanding, I'd like it to be bigger than that, because a lot of times if we're coming from the deep south to WVU or Charleston, and some of these patients, we might have even in a CCT truck or in the ground truck or however it is, that we might not be in the same county. I mean, and I understand that some of it would be this whole like Braxton. If you're coming from Beckley and you got past Summersville, now you're at Braxton and things have just turned really crummy. And we think that it would be better to try to get, or whether it's something they can land at Braxton. We'd much rather just pull in there and scoop, because I don't know, and this is something else from the air community, maybe there are other pads that, there's supposed to be one like right by 79 and 19 and stuff, that we just might need to be more aware of too, about how to do that, as safely as possible, because we wouldn't necessarily know Braxton Fire or 911, and try to coordinate all that to try to land beside the highway or interstate or something. So I don't know. What I loved about this is that I asked about it. Jamie came up with this response. It's in yellow. It's a deep subject, so it may take some more, like what we've heard so far here. But that's why I think this committee would be so good. So at least we can all kind of hash it out, and we could get Mr. Cranston from over there, so the hospital association, and maybe they could bring it up one meeting and just try to see if there could be a global. I think a lot's going to depend on the hospital. Like if you have even a trauma 3 or something, they may or may not. It depends on what services they have, about whether they would want that. I think the ones I'm talking about, for the most part, are critical access, and they're rural critical access, and a lot of times they don't. And it was so interesting down there where they were really giving pushback. Look, the helicopter's going to have more than we have, and this person definitely needs to get completely, needs to get to a trauma, or excuse me, a stroke. And the stroke silos, the STEMI still hasn't been here, but we all kind of know about transfer and pass, and we're building that one. Now stroke might actually, come up. So we got these 3 silos: the trauma, the strokes, and the STEMIs. And now they may have the sepsis. Well, they all develop different policies and different programs about which hospitals can do what. Typically, the same 3 hospitals are doing most of it. But on top of that, I always say there's an umbrella, which is CMS, because it doesn't matter to us what the patient is sick of, sick from, trauma, STEMI or stroke. If where they're going to ultimately be saved and have quality of life is 150 or 200 miles away, then aircraft are going to be involved in that. And so that's what we're trying to come back with, is we're seeing that a lot more now. And it's kind of like I think we need to investigate it. I don't know that this is everything right now, and it can go to full MSAC and stuff, but for those that had comments, and I think the air medicals need to get involved, and I think Dr. Mills is exactly right. Each hospital with their own liabilities is going to try to decide what they can or can't do.
We have an MOU with our hospital that's been signed off by WVU. And what I can do is get a copy of that MOU. Maybe we can send that out as a sample.
Yeah.
Something that people can see. One of the things that we talked about, and we ran this through the trauma committee to get it going, at the local hospital, and that was, the same issues, were we in violation of anything by doing this, so on and so forth. After it went through everybody, they said, as long as you have an MOU and you have constraints in there, and the constraints that are in that is what we follow. As long as there's identified constraints in it, so when you're going to do this and you have an MOU at that hospital, you're perfectly fine. So we can get, a copy of that MOU, send it out as a guide.
And there's this kind of under the water thing that kind of struck me. So the helicopter's got to be there or inside or be arriving in 1 minute. If we stayed up to Holler, 8 miles out, it's going to take a lot longer to get the ground crew and have the helicopter land there. I'm just saying, probably a lot more dangerous. And we know that. So then it's kind of a helicopter, what's your ETA? We need your exact ETA to the site, and we will meet you when you are there. And I don't know, that comes back in this other kind of challenge about that.
And the one issue that we ran into with this, after the MOU was signed, is that we had some young ER docs that were real aggressive. We have one in particular that will come out and get in the back of the ambulance.
Yeah.
If they do that, you're done. You gotta go inside.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's but I think at least this gives us that avenue. And if we don't think it's that avenue, then maybe we're gonna get them in the truck and get down the road 15, 20 minutes towards, well, see, we can't bypass a hospital, and that's gonna be kind of the tricky part about it. We just want them to get to the end point and definitive care as quickly as possible. And we know that that's hours in the ambulance sometimes, to a trauma center. So in that case, we want to just try to get them there, as quickly as possible.
Would this be individual squads getting an MOU signed by the hospital, or would this be a county commissioner thing for us to use that yellow pad at the hospital?
See, that's what I'm hoping, is that we can get a statewide MOU if a hospital really wanted to do it and says that any of the 199 ambulances can use this policy.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I would recommend that if you've got a county EMS association, or you have a county-wide service, that group could do it. If it's a legitimate group, they could work with the hospital on behalf of all the agencies. But if there's no cooperative agreement or group to represent those squads, it's gonna have to be individual squads. And every hospital is gonna wanna approach this differently. That's what we've seen through the years.
Do you think Mr. Krantz is one to kind of use as a point person, or how do you think we'd go out to the hospital?
Yeah, I think that he would be the point person to go to take it to the hospital association, but it will take a long time to move it through there, because the hospital representatives to the hospital association probably aren't the people who are going to be the decision makers, especially for those hospitals that are owned by out-of-state corporations. It will absolutely have to go to their mothership in Texas, Tennessee, or wherever.
But I guess at least in the meantime.
It's a start.
Yeah, we could get it to the medical command center, or something that would have a list of hospitals that have agreed, and as this works out.
We
But
can also get this out information-wise to the hospitals, to our trauma program and the Regional Medical Review Committee. We got several options to attack this all different
except
directions.
the problem is all the hospitals I'm thinking of are probably not rated, they've failed it. It seems like, but all of those are good ideas. And I think when we come back, and Jamie's got some punch going on this too, so, but Mr. Krantz is over, he's a member of the MSAC, so he'll be here today, hopefully. And he's over the Hospital Association, which most of them belong to. And I agree that it may or may not, but we need to get, kind of boots on the ground. And maybe, we'll get a packet out to you guys if you're interested in your local hospitals, and some of those talking points and stuff, and at least try to see where that's at. All right. That concludes the agenda. Now,
Are you
there was
gonna do
a
a
one-point
subcommittee on
agenda.
that, Paul?
What's that?
Are you gonna do a subcommittee to dig into the
Yeah,
hospital?
you think, or I guess
I think we take it back to MSAC and give it to Jim to take to the hospital association.
Okay. We're probably gonna do that first. It may end up needing that, because I think the three major players is gonna be the aircraft, you know, what that is or how that's gonna work with them, although they're pretty set, and then the ambulance, of course, in the hospital, so. But I think we need to develop a policy behind this short draft. I guess would be something that, we would do. Now, for the rest of it, we're 25 minutes in or 30 minutes from start time. You can imagine how this would be if we had protocols, right, policies and procedures. And this would be an opportunity for those that have something to coincide with what you may be doing with your MS office, but this would be one way to try to hash it out in conjunction with that, or before that, or at least see if everybody else has that kind of an idea. So I think this committee is gonna get pretty busy. And then you're not quite at the whole MSAC yet, right? You might be presenting that afternoon or something perhaps, but it would be a way of getting, you know, everybody on board, kind of taking a straw poll and see what the rest of the MS or Dr. Mills thinks about it without kind of a little less formal. And since they're all on the same day, I think this is gonna be outstanding. And between Jamie or Dr. Mills or Melissa about how we, you know, how you submit ideas for protocols, we kind of have one, but maybe this group might be involved with that some at some point, where it's, a lot of these things aren't gonna pop out in one day, you know, just like this, but it's a way to get a lot of good information. Now, for you guys, anything that you have, if, I don't know, does anybody have a thought about what they want to do for future protocols? Is anything burning your pocket? I don't want to, we're not going to flesh them out and talk about them, but I'm just trying to, you know, start the process and what the week and see what may come up. How would you like to get your idea of what a protocol may be, or something you'd like to change or see, and bring it here? And Jamie, do you have a thought about that? Is that going to be on, I mean, you will have to work all that out between whether that goes to the OMS website or the MSAC website or the city website or something like that, that would give you that groundswell to say, hey, it's kind of like the primaries before the general election. And then, of course, you got the MPCC, which is like the judiciary that may.
Yeah, so the way this would work with protocols in particular is you guys would come back, we would discuss it amongst ourselves as far as protocols, have MSAC make the recommendation, and then MPCC would be the final say of protocols, because that is going to deal particularly with medicine. But it gives us something, instead of an MPCC meeting being tied up with 20 different discussions, the recommendation's already made from here. It's given to MPCC, this is the recommendation from MSAC, and they simply discuss it and move it forward.
Good idea, bad idea? I think some protocols and changes can get caught in a cycle for a lot of months, because, you know, somebody here will think it's a great idea, but then Jamie, not me, thinks it's a bad idea. So then it just keeps going back to whoever showed up at the last MSAC meeting. And so we might as well just hash it out. And I think that's what this group is more about, is saying, let's at least get the field providers' angle on it, or the managers, or whoever, you know, has something at stake. And then we kind of grind it together into something pretty good. Then it's presented at MSAC, and then, you know, I think it will actually make things faster. Any other for the good of the organization?
Who's on the subcommittee that looks at the protocols?
Is
that what we're talking about?
I think, yes, I think that we're gonna have to.
Here, I'm gonna have to stand up, sorry.
And that's Becky Oakley.
Yeah, I'm Becky Oakley, sorry.
Yeah, I'm waving for us.
The actual subcommittee for policy, is that
what you're asking?
Yeah, who's
For
on
the
the committee
protocols.
that you're saying would be getting the suggestions for protocol changes?
That would be done right here,
You?
in this meeting.
But who would
That
they
would
send it to
be-
before the meeting?
Paul Seaman, Jamie Weller,
And
and
Marshall,
Marcia Knight.
It's Jamie, Marcia Knight, and who?
Paul.
the three of us.
Oh, just the three of you all?
Yep.
I mean, is it discussed in a bigger group or just like?
This group is where the discussion.
Oh, okay.
So-
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah. The whole idea with this new focus of how we're running MSAC is that you come to this meeting, you all have input. We're here to run this, we're gonna take recommendations back to the formal MSAC meeting from here, but this is your time. This is the EMS provider's time to fill the void, give the input, make the recommendations. That's why, you know, I said that Air Medical and MedCom especially should be in every one of these committee meetings, because you all have input in every piece of this. You know, so that's what we want. We want this to take place. We can make the formal recommendations at MSAC and we move forward.
So if there's a good policy or protocol, we get an hour here to really hash it out and fine tune what we would present to MSAC.
Okay.
And then it'll be presented in there because MSAC cannot take an hour for one protocol, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so that was this whole idea is that we get it, and most people are attending most of the day, but you get this much time to discuss things. And I think as people get more comfortable with it, it's almost like this. So how many think of this protocol, I'm gonna do a straw poll just as an example. How many think this policy should be with landing in the hospital, should be presented to MSAC just as it is, no changes, no problem, no more research, we're good to go? Raise your hands. All right, so how many think that, all right, we're gonna have to come back and think about it, because if we go to MSAC and we're in there and we just pass it, then it goes to MPCC or something, then it gets killed, well, that's not good policy, and it doesn't come back. So how many in here think that we need an MOU? All right, thank you, this is a participation thing. All right, and how many of you think that you could get this passed at your local hospital in an MOU? Just guessing.
All right, next meeting, I'm bringing candy, so there's prizes for participation.
Yeah, we're gonna throw. And the bigger question is, how many is in here, this doesn't really, they don't care. They're never gonna read to the bottom of this because it won't work in there. Yeah, if you're in Morgantown, it's pretty hard to make this work.
How many think it's a bad idea?
Well, yeah. Thank you. That would be Bob Dozier saying that he hates. I'm not doing that on camera. All right. This is going to be like me having to be recorded on the phone lines and dispatch. How many think it's a bad idea? That would be crucial. Anybody? You do? Think it's a bad idea? Good idea? We want to get out early so we can actually get started in the next one. And think it won't help with under a minute? It's going to be hard chasing that helicopter down.
I'm Dr. Mills.
Yes.
I think it's a great idea. However, as with many other aspects of healthcare, we are hindered by legislative rule, federal legislative rule on this one. And we're not really looking at the patient. Yeah, of course there's going to be patients that don't need to go into a critical access hospital. We need that landing site. So it's a great idea. Unfortunately, we got a lot against us, and I think that the simple method would be to work it out with the hospitals, let them make the decision if you can use their landing pad. I tried that at Princeton. They absolutely did not want to do that. If they landed on our pad, we saw them. Number one, and number two, they went so far as, EMTALA is a emergency room to emergency room or civilian to emergency room issue. So interfacility transports, EMTALA applies only from one ER to the next ER. So if we transferred a patient from our ER to a mental health facility, for instance, they wanted an EMTALA form filled out. That's how worried they were about OFLAG coming in and inspecting them. So it wasn't necessary, it wasn't a requirement, but we filled out the EMTALA form on sending a patient to a mental facility that doesn't even have an ER. So EMTALA applies coming into an ER, and it applies to ER transfers.
Sure.
That's just my 2 cents worth.
But I think places like Princeton or even Logan or Raleigh General and places like that, that are within the trauma scope, you know, feel much more comfortable with where it's at. I tend to think some of this is more, although Summersville is certainly an aggressive hospital, there's a lot of times they were the ones that wanted to do that, and Welch and Plateau and Braxton. I think those are the types of places, those places are all over the state, that, you know, Hinton and all those places, that may want this as an avenue. So I'm not looking at this as kind of an all or nothing. Because if you're at Raleigh General, you got another hospital across town if they're busier and all that. And I agree exactly with Dr. Mills. It is this patient in the back, and are they going to make it? You know, is there something this hospital can do? I think the strokes and STEMIs are the ones that I'm looking at more than the traumas, you know? But they're the most dangerous, you know? So you don't go in and they can give them TPA because you're wanting them to go get PCI. But now you're up in a bird flying, you know, another 30 minutes, 40 minutes, depending on how far out the next center is. We have sold time off of that patient line, thinking, hey, if we can keep them alive till then, you know, most of that is up to the patient. They're going to just live or die. There's not so much that we can do. So
Let's get,
I think don't not include the traumas, because I think if a hospital is not at trauma level at all, I mean, they're not even trauma designated at all, and you have an EMS agency transport a level 1 trauma patient to a hospital ER just because it says emergency room on
Right.
the door, that's wrong. And they're not even considering flying the patient.
And then there's
That's
a
wrong.
difference between BLS and ALS. If you're a BLS truck, like in trauma, you know, there's other things, you know, we can run fluids, we can do some things, but what we can't do is x-rays. But then you start taking x-rays and all that, then, you know, you're an hour, you're 2 hours into your golden hour.
well, let's get some more information. Let's get Jim to open the door with the hospital association, and we'll come back next meeting with this thing cleaned up. And then we can make a formal recommendation, and we can push on up to the PCC. Fair enough?
Marcia, do you have any comments or give me anything else here? Anything from the group? So you know how this meeting went, you know, we're a few minutes ahead of time.
So we are ahead of time. Would you all like to take a break now, or would you like to go ahead and do the safety committee meeting? And then take a break?
We'd
Go
actually
ahead and do
have
the
lunch.
safety thing, so we might be able to get lunch.
All right.
Yeah, I'm glad it's